Live from the Trinity Ballroom in Dallas, Texas at the Anatole Hotel, we are live at Cpac 2021, America Uncanceled. And of course, with me is the Iron Lady herself, Adrienne Balcom. What a great experience. You know, this has been already kind of a neat experience for both of us for being such a small show, and yet we are here with press credentials to Cpac, one of the biggest conservative gatherings anywhere.
But we're micro influencers, see, and the micro influencers are the big people that actually give you the actual facts and conservative facts. You're not going to hear that on mainstream media.
That's right. We're going to be focusing on the things that matter to the people of Rockwall County and to basically the people of Texas, because what matters to Rockwall County matters to Texas. And today we're going to be starting with a prayer from a rabbi. And I love that. And the reason why is because I think two of the biggest influencers in my life right now happen to be, or three actually, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, and Dennis Prager. All three Jews. Of course, Shapiro is a very Orthodox Jew, but it is such an eye opener, because I'm not familiar with the Jewish faith as I may, because I've been a Christian all my life and know Christ as my Savior. And so the fact that so many Jews are so influential in conservative politics today really says a lot about where our country is and where we're headed. And I think that is a good thing because so many of these guys are so conservatives. But so we're going to start out with a Jewish prayer, and then we're going to obviously the national anthem. And what's great about it is everyone's going to probably be standing for the national anthem.
I hope so. I really do hope so. Yeah. And it seems like everybody here is excited and they're looking forward to it. I even saw Trump hats as well as the American flag scarves. So I think they are wanting to show their patriotism. So we're here. We're ready.
Well, Dan Patrick is going to be one of the first speakers, and so this is kind of interesting. And before we got on the air, we were talking about, okay, why is Greg Abbott not here and Patrick here? Patrick, by the way, is my favorite guy in the state legislature. I just love him. Next to, of course, Bob Hall. But why do you think Patrick's here and not governor?
Oh, he's going to put me on the spot, y'all. So, we have a special session that's happening this weekend. It actually started yesterday at 10 o'clock. And Governor Abbott is the one that's supposed to create the agenda. So it could be that he just wants to be in the Capitol. But he definitely sent Lieutenant Dan Patrick here, so in his stance. So.
Yeah, so I love Dan Patrick, and one of the things I was listening to the Rick Roberts show yesterday and was listening to Dan's experience, because yesterday was the anniversary of the officers, 5 officers.
Yes, I remember that because whenever you were mayor, you did a dedication to them, so it was a heartfelt message. So.
Well, Mike Smith I knew Mike Smith, the one of those who was killed, and so but it was really heart-wrenching to listen to what Lieutenant Governor Patrick went through in meeting the families and being there, and man, it was very emotional.
Were you surprised that he was there?
No, not at all. And what was interesting is he said, because the governor was out of the state, and when the governor's out, he's the governor, and he serves that position. But what he said is, you're kind of damned if you do go or damned if you don't, because if you do go, people think it's for grandstanding. So basically, he went, but he went in the back door. He did not. He made it his way into. Where the press was not going to be. And so most of the press was not aware that he was there, but the families were, and obviously the officers were.
Okay, well, I wasn't aware that he went through that section to avoid the press or not to make it an opportunity for himself to be highlighted. So that's really nice that he went there for the families.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's a great leader, a true conservative.
So let's talk about what's happening in the next couple minutes. Actually, we're going to be here listening to some speakers. And do you want to go over the agenda real quick, what we're expecting?
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. And so this morning they had something called direct action training, where they did a lot of different kind of uh, little seminars on different issues. One of them being the school board issue. You were talking about that, weren't you?
Yeah, South Lake was here, and they kind of gave you an idea like how to get involved, how to be active, and all that. So that's something we'll probably bring up in a later time to kind of talk about how to get involved locally, so that you don't have wrong information that's being set out and causing people to a big stir and all that. So I think that there's a way to go about it, and I think that they're going to be used a lot to be able to teach people how to get involved locally, and it was a great example of what they did this past election. So that was a good topic that they discussed today. And then there's also other things that are happening. Let's see, one thing after, I think they were talking about a power play when we're talking about the Texas Supreme Court Justice. They're going to be here, and they're going to be talking about the court system, and I think that's important to know what's going on there, because we have that right, to be able to defend ourselves and stuff. So
Yeah, and so they do have something called a power play. I guess they'll explain what that is. And just so you know, we're going to be
Donald Trump Jr. is supposed to be here tonight. So
Donald Trump Jr. That's right.
So.
That's going to be awesome. And
what to expect, what he's going to say. I have no idea what he's going to expect to say. So.
Well, he's not going to announce for his dad, but I will just tell you there is a lot of Trump 2024 hats and shirts and things like that in the exhibit hall and I'll be getting some. So I'm one of those guys.
Lori, I'm coming to see the Trump store down in the exhibit hall. So, also I'm going to give a plug real quick for Patriot-owned businesses. If you're not on there, it's also nationwide. So be sure to visit Patriot-owned businesses. It's a directory that you can be able to put in your information as well as your website and quick tidbits about what you do for your business. So.
Yeah, so when this thing starts, we are going to hand it over, and we've got a sound feed for that, so you'll be able to watch the entire convention as it happens, and occasionally we'll break in during breaks and things like that. But this is an opportunity for you to see Cpac and experience Cpac. We'll also, over the next there's 3 days. Over the next 3 days, I've got a roving camera that I'll try to capture some things that are going on that you don't get to see. I'll take a tour of the exhibit hall, try to show that to you, and other things that I think would be of interest to you, especially if you can't afford. How much was this?
I don't remember, but it was in the hundreds. So depending on what ticket you got. And the line was extremely long just to even get here today. So it was all the way out into the atrium. I don't know if you've been to the Anatole Hotel, but it was definitely a very, very long line just to get in a regular ticket. So
yeah, so it was such a. I mean, we were basically shocked that we were approved to get the media credentials to begin with. We couldn't be more excited about it, and this is a learning curve for us, but this is the kind of thing that, because we are conservatives, this is such an important thing, I think, for not just for the United States, but for Texas, for Rockwall County especially. The rhinos that are running in and around our county are just rampant, and we have so many Californians. Sorry, guys, but it's true. So many people from California, the left coast, the East Coast. These are people who really don't share our values, but they've got a lot of money because they sell their homes for big dollars, and find their way here. And then they want us to change some of the things that they
want to change the way that we do things here to be kind of like what they experienced in their home. But we're hoping for that to change, because we have to get back to the Constitution, to hold these elected officials accountable, because that is their go-by. That is what we need to study on. We need to preach it. We need to educate those that don't know what the Constitution is and what it's about. So I think that's one thing that's very, very important when it comes to legislation, as well as knowing what your rights are. So for people to know. So what else on the agenda that you think that the policies that we're talking about, the energy policies? I know that there was like an issue with the electric grid and things, and I'm not sure. So I have no idea what they're going to be talking about, but I'm hoping it's going to touch points about how they're going to be able to affect some changes.
They're basically. They're telling us that the program is about to begin, but this is a focus on cancel culture, and America Uncanceled is what this is all about. So basically what we're going to do is hand this over. No, right now it's just videos playing that they don't give us a video feed to tap into, so we're not able to show you the videos, but most of them are commercials to begin with, so it's not you're not missing a lot. But the cancel culture, this is the focus, I think, of this entire convention. And finally, Donald Trump is suing Facebook, Twitter, and Google.
He's suing big tech. And apparently a lot of people are jumping in on that as well. So if you've been affected by being censored online, you might want to head your way to find out what you can do to be able to get a part of that part of the lawsuit. So.
Yeah, so that I think is going to be the most interesting thing as things move along. We're going to have Ben Carson coming along to talk about the whole Black Lives Matter and the critical race theory, these types of things. We've got some real heavy hitters coming to. That's another night. I don't think that's today, but we've got a lot of great speakers and a lot of great topics to discuss. I know that Alan West, who has just announced that he is running for governor, is going to be speaking from the podium. I almost said pulpit, but also here is Huffines.
Yeah, gubernatorial Huffines is down in he has a table or booth down in the exhibit, so we're going to be able to touch base with him, hopefully, and I don't know about, I'm pretty sure the other candidates are here too. I think Chad Prather is also here, so.
Well, hopefully we can talk to some of them, and if we can't talk to them here, we'll talk to them on our show. We'll get them on the show for sure, and so we're excited about this race. Obviously, it's
really interesting, and just for those locally, Rockwall County Commissioners, place 2, we're going to have 2 candidates. It's Dana Malik, who is a council member for Rockwall, and our former Rockwall City Mayor, Jim Pruitt, is also running for the same seat. So.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting race, and frankly, I'm just going to say it. I don't have a problem saying on the county commission, Lee Gilbert, and so I think if I'm a Jim Pruitt guy, so I don't know anything about the other individual. Who is she?
Dana, she's in real estate, and she's a business owner and all that, and she has a background in marketing. But Jim Pruitt, he's definitely has a background in law, and he's a constitutionalist as well. So he's been a very good mayor, and he's also been around public pressure on and how to handle it very well, if you can remember in 2020 how that went down. So. But so it should be interesting race and on what people would want for their commissioner, so what they can bring. So, and that just was announced today for Dana, so we'll see. Just today was announced, yeah.
All right, so I guess we'll see some other races opening up. Yeah. So I guess there's a lot to look at in Rockwall County. One of the things that caught my eye is Roger Williams, state rep. From Texas 25 is also going to be speaking tonight. He's going to give some remarks for about 10 minutes. And so that'll be an interesting thing because, the only person that I feel like is missing is Bob Hall. He's not on the agenda. And that to me is a huge disappointment because Senator Hall is great, basically one of the leading conservatives, if not the leading conservative. I mean, I'm trying to think of someone who has done more from a conservative point of view than Bob Hall.
Well, Rep. Schaefer, he's here for this weekend. He's going to be speaking. But anyway, Senator Bob Hall, I mean, I think he had another scheduled event this weekend that he already prior engagement. So.
Why didn't he cancel? It's funny because I was supposed to be at an event where that he was at, and his team invited me, and I had a previous engagement. So I guess turnabout's fair play on that. But man, I miss when we don't get to hear from Senator Hall. What are some other things that America First Policy Institute is being represented Chad Wolf, former Secretary of Department of Homeland Security, and Kevin Hassett, the former chairman of the White House Council of Economic Advisors. They're going to be talking about can cancel culture be canceled. I think the biggest challenge for this convention for conservatives as we move forward is how can we win another election if they're playing games with it. We're not saying that they've cheated, because I don't want to be knocked off of YouTube, which they do if you say something like that. But goodness knows we would never say anything like that.
I think, honestly, it's going to take all of us to get involved in our local elections. We need to get involved with the administration of it as well. You know, signing up to be a volunteer for a poll worker. Get involved with your precinct chairs. You know, there's a lot of precinct chairs that are open, and they just been open. Nobody's taken advantage of what the value of being a precinct chair is, and they don't have committees, they don't have like community outreach, and they're missing out. We have lots of registered voters, like in our county alone. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of registered voters, but they don't come out and vote. It's substantial, and I think that happens a lot in other counties as well. I think it's like over half of Texas in the counties don't have precinct chairs. And so if you want to get involved, now is the time to look into your local GOP party precinct chairs, find out where you can serve. Whether you don't have to necessarily run for precinct chair, but try to find some way that you can be able to help in your own neighborhood to get people informed, so to get people out to come and vote, because that is what's going to matter. But also getting involved in your election administration too, to be a poll worker, to work the administration part, because that's where the fraud has been happening. So.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I agree with that. We do have, we've got an opening for a precinct chair, and I'm hoping in our precinct, and I'm hoping that Chastity Suela, who may be watching right now, I'm hoping that she'll step up, because she'd be a great precinct chair. People like that. She doesn't live in McLennan-Chisholm, but she is a great conservative. I don't know if you saw her license plate. Her license.
35, yeah. Yeah.
It was an.
Nice.
Yes.
She actually had his imprint, Trump's imprint, on the back of the car. So she's definitely dedicated.
Yeah, she is a state delegate. I mean, she's great. She's a hard worker. She'd be great for our precinct. So I hope Chastity, if you're watching, I hope that you are listening to this, and you will get on the ball and be our next precinct chair. But no, that's a really good point. And there's a lot of people. There's a lot of races that are coming up that are going to be important for the future of Rockwall. Now, Adrian and I, we live in McLennan-Chisholm, and so a lot is going on in McLennan-Chisholm. I'm not a fan of the mayor at all, or the city council for that matter, especially as they're charging forward to kind of grow and expand the size and scope of government. That's what it seems to me to be. But I'm keeping my powder dry on that, because I want to see exactly what they are recommending before I start criticizing, because it may be that they want to protect our 1.5 acre minimum per home site standards in our little city of McLennan-Chisholm, and that would be great if they did. And if they do, I guarantee you that I will be out there, not just on this show, but I'll be out at the city council thanking them and applauding them, and I'll support them if they will stand up and do what the people want.
Yeah, we did recently a survey and a new comprehensive plan. So I guess in the next couple of months we'll see how that unfolds. So there's a lot going on. Other cities have been continuously working on their comprehensive plan, which actually came as a sore subject recently with the city of Rockwall, because people didn't understand about the comprehensive plan that already had set in their plans for a multi-level housing, which is apartments, and so there's a little bit of an education. I think that's going to work itself out, because understanding like how this came about, and it's important to, again, pay attention to what's happening locally. Go to your city council meeting, read the minutes, watch the videos if there is a video available, and get to know your council members so that you know where your tax dollars are going. So
yeah, these comprehensive plans is what the city of McLennan-Chisholm is doing right now. This has an impact over 10 years. And it's interesting, one of the things when I was talking to Mayor Jim Pruitt, when we were talking, I think we had a meeting with him, and we had talked about the apartments and things like that we didn't want to see apartments come in. And he said, well, our comprehensive plan has all the apartments that we want. We don't want to see any more apartments. And I think that was an important point, because they put in what they thought, if you don't put enough low-income housing in your plan, then you will be sued. It's not if, it is that you will be sued. And ironically, McLennan Chisholm, we were able to put low-income housing in the plan, and hope it stays right where it is. And but it is a complicated issue. But if you're not paying attention, if you're not participating, you're going to be surprised and you're going to be angry. I guarantee it.
Yeah, that's one of the things. You got to get involved by reading the information, and not just staying on what's on social media. I think that happens a lot. Like, people get really quickly and angry about something that's said, and it's inaccurate information. So, well,
it is starting to get it's starting to heat up a little bit here in the hall, and so the hall is right now about half full. There's still apparently the registration of all the people out there was pretty difficult, because a lot of people they just came, I guess, at the same time. I don't know that it was real well organized. I'll just put it that way. There was a lot of questions. I mean, we got our credentials, and but there were a lot of questions that weren't answered, and I think a lot of people are confused about what they're supposed to do when they get here, and how they are able to get credentialed. Because it is not cheap to be here, by the way. I mean, you're spending hundreds of dollars just to be at this convention, especially those of us who are local. That's a good deal, since we don't have to pay for hotels. But those who are coming in, I mean, they're paying a lot of money. So, and one of the things they're doing right now is this is a tribute to Rush Limbaugh, and I got to tell you, this is.
America uncancelled.
We're going to hand it over to America Uncanceled.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Cpac 2021, America Uncanceled. For our invocation, please welcome Rabbi Yerachmiel Fried.
Good afternoon. I would like to thank the leadership of Cpac for this invitation and the opportunity to pray together with you today. Almighty God, we of this generation are living in one of the most precarious annals of our nation and in the history of the world. Lord, we can best illustrate this with a story recorded in one of our sacred works. The son of a great rabbi survived a near-death experience. Upon awakening, his father asked him, "My son, what did you see in the other world?" He exclaimed, "I saw an upside-down world. Those who on our world are considered prestigious in the next world were insignificant. Those who are considered insignificant in this world, in that world, were glorified." The rabbi replied, "My son, you have actually seen a right-side-up world. Dear God, we are living in an upside-down world. We are living in a world where a recognized terrorist entity can unleash over 4,000 deadly missiles upon a civilian population with the clear intention to kill and maim as many men, women, and children as possible. They use their own women and children as human shields, and then in mainstream media and on the world stage, they receive a pass. But when the humane democracy targeted by those missiles dares to defend its citizens, it is deemed the villain. An upside-down world. Lord, we as Americans are the proud citizens of a great nation that since its inception has done more to bring truth, dignity, prosperity, human rights, and freedom to the world than any other nation in all of history. Yet this very nation is now being demonized, not only by rogue states and terrorists, but by university professors and elected officials in the hallowed chambers of our own government who are seeking to cancel our great culture, our history, and all that the Founding Fathers stood for. An upside-down world. Lord, there are those who, rather than raising a new generation of proud American children, are instead poisoning the minds of our youth by teaching material which fosters hatred of their own country, undermining the patriotism of the future. An upside-down world. Oh God, we have recently borne witness to uncontrolled mobs burning down our great cities and financial centers, thereby destroying the lives, the livelihoods, and the futures of so many Americans. Yet those who dare defend those cities and those financial centers, they are deemed the villains. An upside-down world. Almighty God, this holy convocation has gathered to show that what's right is right, and what's wrong is indeed wrong. They are here to protect and promote the values and morals upon which our Founding Fathers erected the edifice of this great nation. What's more, the men and women in this room and those they represent are fully cognizant that we are engaged today in a raging battle over nothing less than the very soul of this nation. And as America goes, so goes the world. Oh God, please grant those assembled here and all those they represent the strength and the fortitude to keep our nation strong, both physically and morally, and on the straight path, in order that America will continue to be a beacon of light to the entire world. May you bless the dedicated armed forces and police forces of the United States of America with the strength, ability, and dignity to protect our country with safety and security, with the unwavering support of all Americans. And may you endow the President and elected officials of this country with the wisdom to discern truth from falsehood, to govern wisely through these stormy seas with peace, mutual respect, and honor to all our fellow Americans, and with all our allies throughout the world. And let us all say, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Harrison Rogers, and remain standing for our national anthem performed by Nicole Johnson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Cpac 2021 America Uncanceled. Let's give a warm Texas welcome to Chairman of the American Conservative Union, Matt Schlapp. And from the great state of Texas, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
It is great to have Cpac in the capital of conservatism on planet Earth, Texas!
You know, I live in what's called a blue state, and I know it's blue because you feel so cold and lonely. Yeah. And they said to us that having Cpac would basically be injurious to our health, Governor. Yes. And so we looked out across the country and we said, why are we hitting our head against the wall in a failed blue town? Maybe it's time to branch out. And we went to Florida. Yeah. So don't be offended.
Well, that was pre-season. That was just a tryout. This is the real deal here in Texas, all right? That's right. It's the real deal. We love Florida, but this is Texas.
So there's a little bit of a competition. I don't know if Governor DeSantis is tuned in right now. He might be watching this being live streamed on Fox Nation or Newsmax or going to our website at conservative.org. But we're in Texas. There's a red carpet, pretty hospitable here. Yeah. And Governor, you're in a special session. You've been through a session. All these things that we care about are getting done in Texas.
Everything is getting done in Texas, and I think it would be the perfect place for Cpac to move to and establish their headquarters right here in Texas. Got a deal?
I'm going to need to talk to my lawyers, but I love that idea.
Who needs lawyers? Who needs lawyers?
I love that idea, but more than anything else, I just want to tell the governor and to tell these other brave Republican and conservative office holders in Texas, when you pass these things like constitutional right to carry, when you push back on the idea that little kids have to wear masks or schools and churches should be closed, when you push back on all these things, I know you're doing what's right for Texas, but in a country that is so beleaguered and so despondent at what they're seeing coming out of state capitals and coming out of the national capital, we applaud you for what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Well, we as conservatives know that we need organizations behind conservative thinking, conservative action, and getting conservatives elected. And Cpac has been at the forefront now for 50 years.
That's right.
Matt, you've been at the helm for 6 years.
I know it looks like I've been there for 50 years, but it hadn't been 50 years, okay?
But you've taken it to a new level, and when I look at the success of President Trump in 2016, you were a big part of that in Cpac, so thank you.
Thank you. Well, give it up for the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, and they want to hear from you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. So, how many of you are here from Texas? And how many of you are visiting and just eating your heart out that you want to be here? I mean, we know. So let me tell you something about those of you not from Texas. You don't realize it, but once you arrive here, and you know, we've had 10 million people arrive in Texas since 2000, added to our population, but no one moved here. They arrived here and Texas moved into them. You get the boots, the Capitol, the Alamo, okay? You find the best barbecue in the country. You find the best people in the country. And you find a state that is standing in the brink of freedom and liberty and conservative thought, that's ready to fight for everything that you hold dear, wherever you live in America. Right here in Texas. And when you arrive in Texas, and some of you will be leaving, going back home, and we welcome you back, you're going to take some of the DNA that we all inherit in Texas from Travis and Bowie and Crockett, and that fighting spirit for liberty and freedom. I was honored to be asked by Donald Trump to be his campaign manager in 2016 and again in 2020. And I spent the time with him last week in McAllen, and he looked over and he said to me, "Dan, are you ready for one more in 2024? And I said, "I'm ready if you are. Are you ready?" Make no mistake, whatever he decides, the conservative movement in America has so much to thank President Donald Trump for. He did something that's rare in politics. He said what he was going to do. He did what he said he would do, because that's what you're supposed to do. And that's a message for everyone in elective office. Say what you're going to do what you said you would do, because that's what you're supposed to do. His policies will live on forever. He has taught America to stand up and fight for this nation, because this is a time, and make no mistake, this is not just about Democrats and Republicans. This is about darkness and light. This is about goodness and evil. This is about those who believe in God and those who believe God. There's a difference from believing in God and believing God. When you believe God, you're listening to what God says. You don't abort babies in the womb. You don't break up the family. The left is on a path of chaos. Started with George Soros in spending millions of dollars to elect DAs all over this country, so that when there would be violence in the streets and they would be arrested, guess what? The Soros attorneys let them out. So first you had to corrupt the district attorneys. Then you had to have riots in the streets. Chaos. That's what the left wants, chaos. And you had to have an open border. What do you have in an open border? Chaos. For 30 years now, we've had people coming across the border, and we apprehend about 435,000 a year, almost every year. In 2002, the Chamber of Commerce said there were 10.5 million illegal immigrants in this country. That was 2002. And you keep hearing the media say there are 11 million here. Folks, we have over 30 million people here illegally. And now we are facing apprehending 2 million this year crossing the border, and if we catch 1 out of 3, that's another 4, 5, or 6 million crossing the border. The U.S. Constitution says in Article 4, Section 4, the U.S. government must guarantee to every state a Republican form of government and protect each state from invasion and domestic violence. This administration under Biden and Harris are violating the Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, that not one founding father ever dreamed that we'd have a president one day that would want to destroy our borders, that would celebrate violence in our streets. The Constitution was not written for a party with a label of Democrats. It was not written for a president named Biden, because they don't honor it. They don't respect it. They want to tear it up. And they're trying to tear it up every day. And you see it every day. What's happening on the border today? What's happening on the border today is not an accident. It's purposeful. It's a design plan. Why are they letting millions of people pour across this border? Because they want to turn them into citizens, turn them into voters, and take over this country. It's nothing unusual that people want to come to America. Everybody wants to come to America. No one's breaking into Russia or China. Look what happened to California. It used to be a Republican state, a conservative state. And over time, the border, again, people coming here for their own families, for their own desires, for their own dreams. But what happened over time, it totally changed the government in California to now where it's one of the bluest states in the country. If you look at Florida, they have immigration, people coming into that state, but they're freeing communism. That's what they're fleeing, communism and socialism. It's a different reason they're coming in. And in Texas, we are the last man standing. There are a lot of conservative and red states around the country, but if we fall, America falls. The electoral votes of New York, California, and New York combined together means we could never elect a conservative or Republican to the White House ever again. I can tell you that as the Lieutenant Governor of this great state that I'm blessed and honored to serve, we're not ever going to let that happen. What are the Democrats going to offer in 2022 to Texas? Beto O'Rourke, who wants to take our guns? As John Wayne and Buddy Holly both said, that'll be the day. Are we going to let their other top candidate, Julian Castro, who wants to open border all of the time, become the governor or lieutenant governor of Texas in 2022? No, that'll be the day. Are we going to let a party that would kill more babies in the womb, that would have more men competing with girls and taking their trophies and their scholarships and their dreams away? Are we going to let a party that says to parents, it's okay to mutilate your child when they're 8 or 9 years old and turn them into something that God did not create? That's their platform. That's their platform. Take your guns, defund the police so you can't even defend yourself, have corrupt DAs in major cities that let murderers out of jail so they can commit more crime. It's the chaos that they want and that we see. I don't know what Donald Trump's going to do in 2024, but I can assure you that his willingness to fight and stand up is honored here in Texas. It wasn't an election in 2016. It was a revolution. Hardworking, good people, black, white, and brown, stood together and elected Donald Trump as president. And the reason the Democrats hated him so much is they were one step away from their dream of controlling the country. You see, the left has been working for decades to take over education and higher education, and in large part they have. To take over the media, and in large part they have. They had one more goal: to take the Supreme Court. And Donald Trump stopped them. Can you imagine the court we would have today had Hillary won? That's why they hate Donald Trump, because he stopped them when they thought they had victory in their hand. And we know in 2020, he had even millions more that voted for him. And that army is still there. And he is still there. And those policies and those principles are still there. And I can tell you that here in Texas, we stand with President Trump. In Texas, we stand for the conservative values and principles of Cpac. We stand unashamedly on the Word of God in the Bible. And I know that together, we in Texas will come together in 2022, and we will keep this a red state. We will take back Congress and put Pelosi in the unemployment line and Chuck Schumer in the unemployment line. And in 2024, Trumpism will rise again. God bless you. God bless Texas. God bless America. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a power play. Please welcome owner at Goya Foods, Bob Unanue.
Hi, Cpac. Hi, Patriots. Today is the anniversary of the day the cancel God culture reared its ugly head. A year ago today, I stood in the Rose Garden of the White House to donate 2 million pounds of food. And as a Latino, I had also been honored to have been appointed a commissioner on the White House Commission for Hispanic Prosperity. As a Christian raised in faith by an incredibly loving mother and father, and having been inspired at that moment by the Holy Spirit, I was moved to say that we were blessed to have a president and a leader like Donald J. Trump, who, just as my grandfather was a builder. Immediately, an outraged cancel God culture had a newfound target. Someone who dared to use the word blessed and President Trump in the same sentence. Demands for my firing, apologies, and an onslaught of insults and threats from the cancel God mob followed. When asked if I would apologize, I said, hell no. Having felt the presence of the Holy Spirit when saying we were blessed, as a nation, there was just no way that I could turn my back on my faith, on my parents, on God, or remain silent. We are truly blessed with the incredible gift from God of our lives. We are called to value life, to have a purpose, and as my dad used to tell us, his children, to seek salvation for our souls. Looking back on July 9th, 2020, I realize now that I missed the opportunity to say that we were also blessed to have had a president and a leader who had the courage to defend and respect life like no other president in our times. I believe that this is the principal reason the cancel God culture used every method possible to push President Trump out of office. Our democracy has lasted 245 years under God, yet we are seeing signs of division, moving away from God, and devaluing and destroying life, canceling our history, labeling and hating each other. As the wealthiest nation on earth, we find ourselves as the biggest consumers of drugs and child trafficking, both across our borders and within our communities. The scourge of child and human trafficking is our modern-day slavery, and it is more prolific today than at any other time in our country's history. Tragically, it is also more profitable, if not very more profitable than drug trafficking. How can this happen, and how can we allow the destruction of life and family in the country under God? Well, in 1994, at the National Prayer Breakfast, St. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who would have been canceled today in a nanosecond, lovingly and prayerfully warned us that the greatest destroyer of love and peace is abortion. It is a war against the child, end quote. Unfortunately, Mother Teresa's words fell on deaf ears. According to USAbortionClock.org, there has been over 1.6 billion abortions worldwide since 1980. Since 1973, there has been 63 million abortions in our country. The entire U.S. population of Latinos in the United States is approximately 63 million. 63 million people is twice the population of Venezuela, where I have a daughter-in-law from. 63 million people is equivalent to one entire generation of the United States. Again, Saint Mother Teresa implores us, let us bring the child back. The child is God's gift to the family. Each child is created in the special image and likeness of God for greater things, to love and to be loved. We must bring the child back to the center of our care and concern. This is the only way that our world can survive, because our children are our only hope for the future, end quote. We must heed St. Mother Teresa's pleas to defend, value, and protect our children, to defend and respect life. As the greatest country on earth, we are the last bastion of freedom and democracy in our world. We are called to prosper and to defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To end with the words of Mother Teresa, you and I have been created for greater things. We have not been created to just pass through this life without aim. And that greater aim is to love and be loved. Give yourself fully to God, who will use you to accomplish great things. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow is yet to come. We only have today. Let's begin. Thank you.
Please welcome, from Virginia, Congressman Ben Cline.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Ben Cline, and I've got 3 words for you. God bless Texas. And God bless Bob Unanue. What a champion for liberty. Give it up for Bob. Bob is here fighting for liberty, just like each and every one of you, whether you're from Texas, whether you're from Virginia, whatever part of the country you're from, you are here to fight against cancel culture and to uncancel America. I'm proud to represent the 6th District in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The Commonwealth of Virginia, one of the original states fighting the original cancel culture. The efforts to silence those leaders like Thomas Jefferson, who wrote our Declaration of Independence and said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Original fighters against cancel culture like George Washington, who led the fight, Madison, who wrote the Constitution, who said, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. Patrick Henry, who insisted that we have a Bill of Rights to enumerate those rights given to us by God, and who insisted that, as for him, he said, give me liberty or give me death. We have some modern champions against cancel culture, like Matt and Mercedes Schlapp. True Virginians in every sense of the word. And we're fighting in Virginia even today because, as I say, God bless Texas, Texas stood up last year for liberty. Texas stood up last year for freedom. Texas stood up and delivered its votes for our great president, Donald J. Trump. And as they say, as Virginia goes, so goes the nation. And we have a challenge in Virginia. Virginia is controlled by a one-party liberal group that is fighting to cancel freedom, cancel liberty, cancel those of us who are fighting each and every day for family and for freedom. And we've got to stand up and make sure that when it comes to this fall's gubernatorial election, we don't say yes to the old days of Democrat-led governors like Bill Clinton's bagman, Terry McAuliffe, who's running for governor. We say yes to Glenn Youngkin and the restoration of Republican leadership in the Commonwealth of Virginia. But we are fighting that fight, and I'm proud to be joined today by Gary Palmer, Madison Cawthorn, and dozens of my colleagues, not just from Texas, who are the tip of the spear in the fight against cancel culture. My colleagues in the Freedom Caucus, who I'm proud to be a member of, fighting each and every day against this liberal president, his liberal vice president, and Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her agenda that is not driven by her, but we know who really calls the shots in the House of Representatives. It's the squad. It's the liberal agenda of AOC and the squad that we are fighting against in the Freedom Caucus each and every day. They are trying to cancel family. They are trying to cancel faith. They are even trying to cancel the American flag. Are you going to let them cancel our American flag? No. We have got an organization lined up. We are fighting back against big tech, thanks to our minority leader, Kevin McCarthy, who I'm proud to be a member of the Big Tech Task Force, fighting to make sure that we stand up to big tech, that we stand up to the liberal media, that we stand up to our leadership in the House of Representatives in Nancy Pelosi and the squad, to restore freedom, to restore liberty, to stand up for all that is precious, both here in Texas and all across this great nation, so that we can answer that question that Reagan referenced when he said, you know, our national anthem is one of the only national anthems that ends in a question. It is an unanswered question. It is a question because this country is not finished. Our destiny has not been determined. You will help determine our destiny. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Or the land of the free and the home of the brave? I say, yes, it does. Yes, it will. Now and forever. God bless you. God bless Cpac. God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Please welcome from Alabama, Congressman Gary Palmer.
I was stopped by a reporter the other day coming out of the Capitol, asked me if I had a minute, and I said I did. And he asked me if we were putting targets on Democrats. And my response was, we don't need to, they're putting targets on themselves. I pointed out that they're losing on crime, they're losing on the border, they're losing on the economy, they're losing on China, and they're losing. I heard Lieutenant Governor Patrick say he wanted to put Nancy Pelosi in the unemployment line. I wonder if she'll sign up for that federal unemployment bonus that she's so fond of. Well, let me tell you this. He went on and he asked me, he said, well, you only need to win a few more seats to get back control of Congress. Are you Republicans just going to coast in? How do you think I answered? I said, hell no. There's too much at stake. The country's future's at stake. We know it, and the Democrats know it. They're fighting for their lives, too. They think that we've lost our movement. They think we've lost our momentum. They couldn't be more wrong. We are determined to take back our country. I chair the policy committee. I'm part of the Republican leadership, and we're focused on the issues. We had a hearing with the acting director of the Office of Family and Children, and the chairman of the committee, the Energy and Commerce Committee, made the point that all these unaccompanied minors are leaving their countries because they're escaping violence. Well, I pointed out that the murder rate in St. Louis is more than 5 times the murder rate in Guatemala. The murder rate in Baltimore is almost 4 times more than the murder rate in Guatemala. And I asked them, what are the Democrats and the Biden administration doing to help the children in these cities like Chicago and Baltimore and Detroit, St. Louis, escape violence in those cities? What are they going to give them amnesty? No, they're defunding the police. How many of you are for defunding the police? Anybody? We are winning on the issues, but we're also winning because of our passion for our country. We don't have a lot of time left. We're going to get the majority back. We only need to win 5 more seats, but we're going to do better than that, and nobody's coasting in. We know what we've got to do. They look at us, and they look at the country as flyover country. They've introduced an infrastructure bill that President Biden says it's Build Back Better. There's not a dime in it to build new roads or bridges. It's all about mass transit and the Green New Deal. I don't call it Build Back Better. I call it Build Back Bullcrap. What I'm looking at is the heart of the movement here. We know what we have to do, and we're going to do it together. We're going to take back the majority in the House, we're going to take back the majority in the Senate, and we're going to take back the White House in 2024, and it might be a guy who said, let's make America great again. Now, my question to you is if somebody comes up to you and says, are you going to coast in? What's your answer going to be? If they come up to you and say that the movement has lost its momentum, what are you going to say? That's the right answer. God bless you, God bless Cpac, and God bless America. We're coming back.
Please welcome from North Carolina, Congressman Madison Cawthorn.
Wow, well, hello, Texas. Thank you. Thank you all so much for coming out today. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you for coming to this conference. You know, as Gary was saying, when they say that our movement's lost momentum, I mean, just take a look around. Does it look like we've lost momentum? You know, as I'm starting to realize, I've gotten to travel across the country a good bit now, trying to win my generation back from the clutches of socialism. And I get to go speak at all these conferences all over the country. And I will tell you, the thing that I've realized is that what unites the Americans is far greater than what divides us. You know, I think that the majority of Americans agree on 80% of all the issues. But career politicians and the mainstream media, and I hate calling them mainstream because they are anything but mainstream. It is these entities who want to sow division in our country and force us all to focus on this narrow 20% that divides us because they want to profiteer off of it, or career politicians like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer want to gain power off of it. But when I go across this country, I realize, no, most Americans are freedom-loving patriots. And when I start going around this country, I realize the Democrats have a true problem. People are starting to wake up to their tyrannical and overreaching and authoritarian moves, because I genuinely believe it's no longer Republican versus Democrat. It is now freedom-loving patriots versus people who worship at the altar of the state. And remember, the bigger that government gets, the smaller God must get. And they're trying to push God out of our schools. They're trying to force us to want to vote to have people like Dr. Fauci in command of every aspect of our lives. And so when I start thinking about, okay, who are the normal people that normally vote for me? Okay, well, it's people who normally are gainfully employed. It's people who normally have a very strong family unit. It's people who normally believe in Christian Judeo values. And so then when I start thinking, well, who is it that actually votes for the when I call really these socialists, the communists in our country? And when I start looking at it, I realize, that's fantastic. You should run my comms department. You're great. I genuinely realize that they are trying to create more people to vote for them. Everything that they're doing in our culture is trying to create more people who want to vote for socialism. They're putting abortion centers and introducing third-wave feminism to tell women that they don't need to have a family. They are introducing people to have stimulus checks delivered to their homes so they don't ever have to go to work. They're increasing our student loan debt to the point that we have a generation of people who are eternal renters. Now, when you start thinking about it, this means that there is an entire generation of people that are around my age who the overwhelming majority of them don't have children, so they don't care about the next generation of this country. The overwhelming majority of them don't actually have any land or have any ownership of this land. Therefore, they don't feel like they need to care about, you know, who cares if I'm sitting at home making $109,000 a year? Now, I know you're probably all sitting here saying, well, that's a weird number to throw out. Why would you say $109,000? Because the average family of four here in Texas, if they had applied for every single benefit they were eligible for from last March to this March, they would have been able to get $109,000 without ever going to work. It's absurd. They're trying to create more people to vote for them, people who don't care about the future, because they realize that that's the only way they can gain all authority. And believe me, this is what we're up against. We are up against a tyrannical movement of globalists who worship at the altar of power. And I know that for a lot of us, we say, man, and really not many people here at Cpac, because you all look incredibly courageous. But I believe that there are a significant portion of people who feel afraid to stand up, who feel afraid to fight back, who feel afraid to speak out because, one, they might not want to lose their friends, or really they think they're up against this giant billion-dollar industry of the mainstream media, and they're up against all these career politicians, and all these multinational corporations are against them. What help could I do? What could I possibly do? I want to remind you that as an American, you are not descended from fearful men. Because 245 years ago, 56 men met in Philadelphia to sign a document that said, we are going to have freedom in this nation. I don't care what you do about it. And my friends, it didn't happen by accident. This country was absolutely created on purpose. Go through every single word they put inside our Declaration of Independence. And you might say, wow, they chose all those words so carefully. Why did they bother to put in the fact that they're in Philadelphia? I mean, what does it really matter where it's signed? But my friends, remember that England was the greatest naval power the world has ever known. And Philadelphia is a port city. It's capable of receiving very, very large ships that can carry a lot of cannons. And so the Founding Fathers, knowing that they were going to be persecuted, knowing that they were going to be hunted down, knowing that at least 9 of them were going to have their families kidnapped and their homes burned to the ground, they went to a port city to the edge of the power of the British Empire and said, I declare independence from you. I declare independence from the greatest power this nation has ever known. So when you think that you cannot make a difference because there are not enough of us, remember, 56 men started to put a small ember into our nation that then led to 3% of the American population standing up to actually fight for liberty. And because those 3% of people stood up and fought for our rights and liberties, you get to pass on freedom of speech. You get to pass on freedom of religion. You get to pass on the incredible freedoms that only this nation has. Because, my friend, in this country, we are not subjects, we are citizens. Remember that you are the royalty and the government works for you. It's time to take it back.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mike Berry.
Well, it's fitting that this year's theme is America Uncanceled, because in about 36 hours, I'm going to put on my uniform, I'm going to stand my post as a U.S. Marine Corps Reserve officer. And I sure hope that what I'm about to share with you doesn't get me canceled from the military. I'm here from the front lines of the battle for religious freedom to report on what I've seen and experienced. My name is Mike Berry, and I have the privilege of serving as General Counsel for First Liberty Institute. First Liberty is the largest legal organization in the country whose sole mission and focus is religious freedom. And when I'm not fighting for religious freedom at First Liberty, I do consider it an honor and a privilege to serve as a reservist in the Marine Corps. There's no way to sugarcoat what I'm going to tell you, so I'm just going to come out and say it. Our military is at risk of being overrun by woke ideology. I know this is true because I'm perhaps the only conservative who is a member of the Department of Defense's recently concocted Countering Extremism Working Group. The Secretary of Defense set up this working group just a few months ago in order to identify and remove so-called extremists from our military. Now, while getting rid of extremists might sound like a great idea, the devil, as they say, is always in the details. You see, this working group is being led by somebody who publicly proclaimed that anyone who voted for Donald Trump in the election is a racist, a misogynist, and yes, even an extremist. And of course, President Biden himself has recently declared that white supremacy is the greatest threat to America right now. Not China, not Russia, not North Korea. I guess maybe the silver lining in all of this is that we've somehow found a way to defeat climate change. But as I was saying, the Pentagon's Countering Extremism Working Group is on a mission to identify and remove so-called extremists from our military. And if you're like me, you might have stopped and thought, extremism is bad. I don't want extremists in my military. And true enough, nobody wants to see true extremists kicked out of our military more than those of us who serve. But by true extremist, I mean anyone who uses or threatens violence to accomplish an ideological agenda. But that's not how the Pentagon is defining extremism. According to a Department of Defense training manual, the following are examples of extremism. And ladies and gentlemen, I can't make this up. This is from an actual DoD training manual. If you believe in individual liberties, if you believe in states' rights, if you want to make the world a better place, and get this, the American colonists who sought to be free from British tyranny, all of those are examples of extremists, according to the Pentagon. Did you notice something about every one of those examples? Not one of them mentions conduct or actions. They all talk about thoughts, beliefs, and values. And for maybe the first time in our nation's history, the Pentagon is trying to get rid of people who simply declare that the values that you and I and millions of our fellow Americans hold dear are extreme and make us unfit to serve in the military. One of the first things, as an example of what this Countering Extremism Working Group is considering doing, is monitoring the social media activity of American service members and American veterans. They want to see if anyone likes, shares, posts, or even tweets something that the Pentagon considers to be prohibited or extreme. That's right, the U.S. government wants to use your hard-earned tax dollars to monitor our troops on social media, just in case somebody happens to post something that they consider extreme, such as, oh, I don't know, maybe an Olympic athlete showing pride in Old Glory for once. If that sounds eerily familiar, it's because China has been doing it for years. The Chinese government monitors what their citizens do on social media every day. It's a social credit system. If you say the right things about the Chinese Communist Party, you get social credit points. If you say the wrong thing, you get those points taken away. And if you lose enough points, the government starts to take away some of your freedoms and liberties. If that sounds like something out of a dystopian novel, guess what? It's happening in China right now, and now our government is considering doing the very same thing here. Well, guess what? I've got news. Not on our watch. At First Liberty Institute, we don't sit on the sidelines and lament America's descent and demise. I told you earlier that I'm here from the front lines to report on what's happening. And that's because First Liberty is on those front lines every day, fighting and winning. We win a lot. In fact, for over 20 years, our win rate has been higher than 90%. And we don't get tired of winning. Now, that record only stands to improve with the incredible judges that were confirmed during the Trump administration. These are some of the most brilliant minds in the legal profession, and they're just as committed to defending the Constitution as you and I. But there's another threat I have to warn you about. The radical left also knows how effective President Trump was at rebalancing our judiciary. They also know that they can't remove those judges because they have lifetime tenure. So the left says if they can't beat them, they're simply going to outnumber them. As I stand here today, the radical left is pouring tens of millions of dollars into its effort to pack our courts from the Supreme Court on down through our lower courts. Now, let's just call it what it is. Whenever somebody tries to overthrow a branch of the government, you call it a coup. And if the left gets its way with this coup, our constitutional republic as we know it is gone. But as I said, not on our watch. First Liberty is doing something about it. We are exposing the radical left's coup attempt, and I invite every single one of you to join us. All you have to do is visit firstliberty.org or supremecoup.com to add your voice to the tens of thousands of Americans who stand with us in defending religious freedom for all Americans. I mentioned at the beginning that some of my friends warned me that speaking here today at Cpac might get me canceled or even kicked out of the military. Well, if they're going to discharge me, then so be it. Just as long as my discharge papers say why I was kicked out, for love of country and for telling the truth. Thank you. God bless America, and God bless Texas.
This is one sick person.
There is a way to find justice.
Absolutely beautiful.
And it all
It's like coming home for me. I got to go see my old house today, got to eat at a restaurant that I hadn't seen in forever, and then I get to hang out with some great conservatives like you. It's not a bad day at the office for me, I can tell you that much. So let me tell you what we're going to be doing. This is going to be rapid fire, and it's going to be a blast. We are going to talk about 4 major issues that I think all of you would agree with me on are going to be extremely important, especially with the midterm elections coming up. My list, number 1, immigration. You can kind of an important issue right now. Number 2, energy. Then we're going to deal with the Second Amendment and big tech. So you guys, here we go. So first up is going to join me State Representative Matt Schaefer, 20 years in the Navy and Reserves. He's going to come on out now. Give him a big thank you for serving our country as well. First time on stage I've had another dude wear boots. It's usually I'm the awkward one. I love this. This is nice. So let's talk about immigration for a second. For people that don't know what's going on, we have an immigration crisis. I would argue that it's not a crisis to this administration. I would argue this is being done on purpose. I would argue that they absolutely premeditated and pre-planned to have an open border policy to flood the United States of America and then send people all over the country. You have been leading on this issue. You've seen how big of a problem this is since 2016. One of the big issues is obviously sanctuary cities. We saw when the vice president landed in Texas, didn't actually even go to the border. You know, it was a great photo op, didn't see the border though. She was sitting there with a congresswoman that said, "Welcome to the new Ellis Island of the United States of America. We are the capital of the border here." When you hear that, knowing what you guys are dealing with sanctuary cities, it basically says if you're across the border, come over, we want you, run across the border, and no one's going to stop you.
The Biden administration turned on the welcome sign. It's a big light. It's saying not only come, but we will make your life easier. We will help you when you get here. There's a number of benefits that you'll have access to. And it is a major crisis. It really is. And I do believe it's intentional. As you mentioned, I believe that they say an open border to the Democrats means winning elections in the future years, because it changes the demographics in a way that it's going to be hard to come back from. So if you're not from Texas and you're not really familiar with the scope of what's happening, it's really unimaginable just how many people. We had a 2-week period recently in Texas. We had over 50,000 people that we apprehended in just a 2-week period. Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador are emptying into the state of Texas. And this is a federal responsibility, a Texas problem, but I can tell you, if you're from another state, it's going to be your problem too, if it's not already. And the drugs and the human trafficking are incredible. From the state of Texas, we look at the pressure that's going to be put on our foster care system, on our public schools, on our health care system. Well, you know, the left, they all talk about, oh, Texas ranks such and such in the number of uninsured. Well, are they Texans that are uninsured? Let's talk about just how many Texans, okay? We have thousands upon thousands of people that are flooding across who don't speak the language, who don't have identification, and are just being welcomed by the Biden administration. And
you mentioned drugs, and I want to ask you about this because I had a caller the other day. It was a woman that called in the show, and we were talking about this open border policy, and she said that she buried her grandson. He took some drugs that were laced with fentanyl. The police said when they made that phone call and were telling them what happened, we're seeing a lot of this right now. We are seeing people that had no intention to OD that are getting these drugs coming across the border. They think they're just going to have a good time, as they described it, and get high, and they die. And they said it's getting worse and worse by the week as we are seeing the open border, because there's such a marketplace for this. And if you want to try to get your drug there and you need to put something else in it to get it close to what the other drugs are and you don't have it, that's why they start doing this. They're making new type of concoctions.
The cartels are highly professional in how they do this. They equivalently set up, pharmaceutical manufacturing plants down there. They will hire chemical engineers from their universities to run these things. They're doing this on a scale and lowering the cost to where they control the market. I live out in rural East Texas, and it used to be that there would be methamphetamines that were, grown out in the woods. Not anymore, because the cartels in Mexico are so good and efficient at producing methamphetamines that they've taken over the market. They are killing Americans, and you can go just across the river from the Texas border, and there are fairly large cities that are completely ungoverned, no police force. Folks, you need to understand that there are large parts of Mexico that are completely ungoverned by legitimate authorities. The Mexican army, the Mexican police do not have authority in those areas, large parts of the country. And so they have gained operational control of the border, and the Biden administration has abandoned us.
Let's deal with what cities do. It's obvious that the federal government's not going to do their job. They're not going to step in. Well, I think they say, we are doing our job. We're changing policy. It's an open door, open border, bring it all in policy. What do states have to do? What have we done right in Texas? What should other states that are now dealing with these flights coming in the middle of the night? Marsha Blackburn, for example, senator from Tennessee, finds out through social media, basically, that planes are landing in the middle of the night in Chattanooga, Tennessee, filled with illegal immigrant children. No one from the federal government told them they were coming, and we're seeing this now happen all over the country. So what do other states learn from Texas and what you guys have done?
A couple of things. I think that our Republican conservative attorney generals need to test the constitutional boundaries on this immigration issue and turn these cases over to these Trump judges. Donald Trump left these great judges for us, and we need to put this issue in front of them and say we can stand up where Washington has failed on that. The second is you have got to pass strong anti-sanctuary city laws. In 2017,
what does that mean? Tell me what a strong law is. So many people here. How many people are out here from outside of Texas?
That means,
what do they go back and ask for? What do they say?
You need to do
hey, state rep, I need you to do X.
You need to do what we did in 2017, which says when you've got a sheriff in a big city that says, oh, we've got this person in jail who's an alien, and ICE wants to detain her, and so we're just going to let that person loose even though they're a violent criminal. We're going to put them out on the street. You pass a law that says if they do that, they will go to jail. And that's what we did in the state of Texas.
Last question on this one, and I think it's one that's really important. For us in the midterms, I think it's important that we have compassion for people that are suffering, while also explaining very clearly that our laws are laws that are going to be enforced, that we are not going to be a lawless society, community. How do we sell this better than we have to the people? Because I understand people that are suffering, but I also know we're being taken advantage of.
Well, I agree with that. Every person is made in the image of God. Every person, whether you're from Guatemala or you're from the state of Texas. And we're going to treat people with respect. But God is a God of order and not chaos. And we have chaos on the border right now. God is a God of order. But let me tell you about the politics of this. Donald Trump was so racist, apparently, that all of these people on the border are now voting Republican in the state of Texas. Look at the counties in Texas that voted Republican, that were Hispanic Democrat areas that are now voting Republican.
They saw the crime coming in. They saw the violence. They saw the cartels. They saw the sex trafficking, the human trafficking. They saw the abuse, and they saw the amount of money that these coyotes looked at these individuals, not as human beings. When you pack people in an 18-wheeler, you don't look at them as human beings. You look at them as a dollar sign, and you don't care if they die on the way there or after they get to America.
And what about the rights of the people that live along the border, the ranchers, the business owners, the people that have had their property destroyed? The woman who will not mow her front yard without a pistol on her belt because she doesn't know if a gang of MS-13 members are going to come through her property. These are real people. I've talked to them. These are real problems. There are real security concerns. we do want to trade with Mexico. That's great. We have great relationships there. But this is not about trade or jobs even. This is about bringing order to chaos.
Rep, I appreciate you coming out here. Give a big round of applause for a man leading on this issue and serving his country. He'll be back out in a few minutes as we talk about guns. Thank you. I told you we're going to be going fast here. Coming up, we're going to deal with energy. I want to introduce Representative Michael Cloud and also Kevin Freeman coming out the stage. We tried to warm it up for you out here, guys.
Thank you.
Which family member was that? Be honest. How much did you pay him? Come on. You're going to a good steak dinner tonight.
Well, we have one of the best districts in Texas, so I personally think the best. So.
All right, so let's talk energy. Texas is, we might have a little bit of energy going on here, pre-Biden administration. I want to start with one of the big headlines that has happened nationwide, and that is Keystone Pipeline. They're going to sue the U.S. government for a lot of money for pulling that permit, as they should. You look at gas prices that have skyrocketed. You look at a lot of people that are going to look at this administration and say, is it worth doing anything in any state in America if we know that they're going to start pulling things? So I want to start with you on that from a states' rights issue. What is the game plan, and how do you fight back against this, as it's very clear they've said we're not open for business. If it has anything to do with fossil fuels and doesn't have alternative energy in front of it, we're going to destroy it. And look at the price of the pump now.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, exactly. I think the first thing we have to realize is that there is an intentional effort to shame us out of Americans, as Americans, out of our strengths. So you're not buying an electric car, is that what you're telling me? So that's our national history, that's the rule of law, that's our amazing diversity as a nation, and certainly that applies to our natural resources. So there's an attempt to shame us out of our strengths, and we've got to stand up to that. And so I've been asking that same question to people in the oil and gas industry. I was at a lunch, and there was a dozen people there, and we were talking these very issues, and the execs were asking me, they said, how do we get the Biden administration to understand that the policies they're putting in place are going to lead to $4 and $5 a gallon gas for the American people, and what that's going to do for energy prices for their families, and those. How do we get them to understand that? And when I told them, it was like, it's not that they don't understand that, they understand that. That's their goal, and that's what's sad. And I think that's what the energy industry needs to stand up and understand, and certainly the American people need to stand up and understand, is that this is very intentional. This isn't an accident. This isn't some misguided policy. It's misguided.
I remember when you go back to the Obama years, and this is a very concise plan. And Kevin, you'll remember this, when his energy advisor said, we want to see the same prices that they have in Europe. Now, he lied at the time because he referred to it as gallons, $5, $6, $7 a gallon. No, that was liters. You can Google it and see how many liters are in a gallon. We were talking about totally off the charts gas price in America per gallon. It's obvious that they're saying, okay, we'll make it where you are forced into submission to agree with our green energy policy, which is you're going to drive a car that you're going to plug in. What's so funny about that is in California, they asked them to stop charging their cars a week ago with their energy crisis out there. So, yeah, the chickens are coming home to roost, but you hear it from people. They're stressed. I don't care about the 9 cents I saved on the 4th of July barbecue that the White House said we should be so proud about. 16 cents. Sorry, I should have made sure it's accurate. 16 cents is how much you saved when it's costing me almost double at the pump.
Yeah, it's absolutely pure economic warfare. They're trying to use our system and our money to destroy our economy or to implement their socialist Marxist agenda. There's no other way to look at it. You want to drive oil prices high, you know it has implications. It costs people jobs, it creates inflation, it slows down economic growth. It is intentional, it's purposeful, so that they can sweep in with their radical Marxist solutions.
You know, I look at what's happening now in states, and it's weird because I love America. I don't think that flag over there is racist. I don't think that flag is something I should be ashamed of. I don't think it's something I should not celebrate. And by the way, if you're going to the Olympics, you should fly the flag and be proud of it, or you shouldn't be on the Olympic team representing the United
to realize that, you know, so policy, and